Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth lecture in our online environments here for Communication CO 210. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody is once again doing well, staying safe, and continuing to be engaged in the classroom proceedings. So we're looking at chapters 8 and 9 here, media and persuasive speaking. We looked at announcements A1 through A6, and so let's make sure that we are staying on top of these announcements. If we tuned in at around announcement number 4, make sure that we go back and read announcement number 1 and 2, and make sure that we are up to speed on everything that is expected of us to finish the semester strong and successfully. And of course, welcome general audience here to something that I've just been calling quarantine lectures with a few beats in the background. I'm glad we could all make it, and I hope that we are engaging in some form of intellectual activity in our own lives, and that social distancing, or what many people now are calling physical distancing, is not slowing us down too much. And so, welcome to this week's lecture. Happy Wednesday, everybody, or Tuesday, depending on where you are. And so, we're looking at our video speech, and so this is our persuasive speech assignment. Make sure that we look on the Moodle, and you will find our persuasive speech handout. This is the third handout, and so we have 3 handouts on our persuasive speech. The first one is the persuasive speech prompt. This is the major assignment, as if we were conducting the assignment in class, and we should be following this prompt. There's also one for the outline. We will be asked to turn in a formal outline, a little bit different than the informational speech. The persuasive speech is a little bit more open-ended. We can create an organizational pattern that we feel is fit for our topic and our speaking style. And so we do not have to follow just one of the recommended outlines, such as the Toulmin model or the motivated sequence pattern. We can use a variation of any of these organizational structures. What's most important is that we have an organizational structure, and I can read that, and I'm aware of that when I view your speech. So how are we going to deliver the speech? We will deliver the speech to a recorded platform of some sort and email it to me. It should only be 5 minutes in length, because we have a little bit of more control of the post-production, the production process. We should turn in a recorded speech to me that should be 5 minutes in length. And so let's try to hit the parameters of the assignment now within the electronic space. And so we have the speech handout, we have the outline handout, and now we have the persuasive speech electronic version handout. So just remind everybody that we live in a society where electronic forms of communication are as prevalent and meaningful as live presentations, and we might even make the case that they are even more prevalent and even more meaningful. And so there's some things that are similar in structure, and there's some things that are different. The recorded speech should follow the structure of your planned speech, and so we should have an organizational structure, and you should follow that. Introduction, body, conclusion, a cohesive narrative that is delivered in a recorded format, just as a live speech would be delivered. And so let's emphasize yourself speaking directly to the camera, as I am now. You can imagine this happening in a live environment, as it is happening in a live environment, just in a separated space from where you all are. Following the outline and using note cards preferably. And so if you have note cards, please produce note cards and use those note cards during your performance of your recorded speech. And so you are delivering a live speech, it's just being recorded and then possibly edited ever so slightly and sent to me to view. And so we still have that performance moment. You still have that apprehension. Am I saying the right thing? And is the audience reading me? It's almost even a little bit more difficult because we don't have the audience to receive direct feedback from. And so let's enjoy the space, the electronic apparatus, as it were, that we are in, and deliver a speech, record this speech, and then send it to me. And then I will view it and evaluate your performance. I think this is a nice opportunity to engage in this type of assignment. And I'm looking forward, even when we do return to classroom spaces, to offering this assignment to students, because I feel that we communicate so much through mediated and recorded outlets. Some things will be a little bit different though. You should record this live speaking moment, and in doing so, you kind of reproduce a potential and conceived audience in our minds. And so you have to think about your audience. You have to remember to be formal, and you have to think about the knowledge and the reactions that your audience might be comprehending and going through during the recording and performance of your speech. Produce an electronic version of the speech that is no longer than 5 minutes. We can edit for time and make as many attempts as we wish. And so in this regard, there's a little bit of a higher expectation on your performance. I understand now that you could have done this in 1 take, or you could have done this in 20 takes. It's like a live performance of a band versus listening to the album. Right? We expect the album to be perfect. But the live performance, we let a couple things go and slide because we know that there's really only 1 take to get it right. And so take as many takes as you wish and attempt to produce an ideal speaking moment. And the audience is aware that you have the ability to kind of capture and hone in what you might think is an ideal version of this speech. Enjoy working in the electronic space and produce a 5-minute video in length of your persuasive speech. The video should clearly present your argument and attend to the issues in all facets of verbal, visual, auditory, and textual communication. You can be as elaborate or as simple as you want in the recording. And so video production is not primarily what I am evaluating here. I'm evaluating your expressive faculties and the ability to research an issue and develop a persuasive stance regarding this issue. At the same time, we are engaging in technological mediums here and using them. And so I will be aware, and all effort will be rewarded. The emphasis is on your argument and the clarity of your verbal and nonverbal presentation. If you wish to simply record yourself in 1 take as you would a live speech, that is okay. However, if you wish to use different takes or editing of any sort, you can as well. If you have the capability, you can use audio, textual, or visual elements that are commonly used in many produced videos that we watch on TV or online. The last requirement here, the visual element that we have discussed, is expanded. As we have the opportunity through editing and post-production to include other elements. And so let's remember that we will expect an organizational structure, we will expect the presentation of an argument and in-speech citations, just as we would in class. But now we have this small visual element that we had in class. What kind of visual element? What prop? What demonstration? What were we going to write on the board or where during our presentation? Now is highlighted and emphasized a little bit more in the electronic apparatus. And so let's enjoy this space. If you have the capability to put text down below or to interject an image or an audio score of some sort, by all means, don't hinder yourself in this environment, just as I wouldn't want to hinder you in a live speaking environment. But know that I am primarily evaluating your expressive faculties as we would in class. And so don't feel nervous if you are not that technologically savvy or familiar with elements of post-production. Lastly, I would like us to please incorporate another individual in the constructing or viewing of the recorded video. And let's take a look at our performance or persuasive speech handout, the electronic version, one of those three handouts. And so produce a one-page write-up about how somebody helped you make this video and therefore served as somewhat of an audience member, or find an audience member to show this video to, have a discussion and get some feedback from them. So we do have a live audience involved in this production in some way. So remember, record the delivery of the speech and produce a 5-minute video that you can email to me on my Triton email. That is due by Wednesday, 5/6. And so we have a due date here for our persuasive speech assignment. Let's aim for getting this assignment completed and turned in on time. The video should be a relatively small file that is self-contained and enough for me to download and or open online. If we have troubles with this online platform, or if we want to use alternative platforms and I can't open it and view this video, I'm open for suggestions. Of course, at the same time, if we're really struggling, I can offer an alternative format for this assignment. For example, we can connect on Zoom or a WhatsApp video, and you can possibly deliver the speech live. But that is only if you are having trouble producing the video in its recorded format. And so the speech, make sure you have an issue that you've located and you're honing in on a persuasive stance. The outline, remember, formal research should go into the creation of this outline. This outline should be turned in to me via email on 5/6. And then the actual production of the speech as it is delivered and disseminated in the electronic apparatus. And so you will perform this speech and you will record yourself giving this speech. Ultimately, this isn't a live moment, right? This is a recording of a live moment. And so enjoy the elements of post-production there as much or as little as you wish. Lastly, collaboration. See the handout for this description. I want you to collaborate with at least one other person. More, if possible, is fine as well. Provide a little bit of their information and their names and discuss what it was like to produce this artifact while working with another individual. And all of this will be due on 5/6. Hello, everybody, and I hope we're all doing well. Today we'll be talking about rhetoric. Aristotle defined rhetoric on page 1 of his book over 2,000 years ago, titled The Rhetoric, as all available means of persuasion. At this time, Plato and Socrates had already devised a notion of uncovering the truth called dialectical tension. Two opposing forces going back and forth in dialogue, hence the term dialectic, trying to uncover a shared truth. And we really discuss this as an objective notion of reality, that it takes at least two parties to go back and forth to uncover what the nature of any given situation is, or what the reality of a situation is. And it's very quite interesting. You could have something as objective as the temperature in the room, but you still might have to have a discussion about it with somebody else. Is it hot in here, or is it just me? Is it cold in here? Is there a window open? Right? We could look at a thermometer and see that it is exactly 68 degrees in a room, but we still might have to have a conversation with others around us. And so the world around us is perceived differently by different people, and we discussed that last lecture. Dialectical tension is a way for uncovering a reality that is shared by multiple people. On the same page of that same book, Aristotle states that rhetoric is the counterpart to dialectic. And so, for Socrates and Plato, a dialectician was somebody that was equally invested in uncovering the truth as their counterpart, another dialectician or another philosopher speaking in earnest. And in doing so, both could go back and forth because both people were mutually invested in the same way in the outcome, the pursuit of truth and knowledge in all of its objective Platonic understandings of the term. But when Aristotle comes around, he notes that rhetoric is all available means of persuasion, and that everybody is not just a dialectician arguing with other dialecticians, but they are rhetoricians. They are invested in the outcome in certain ways. And so we move from two dialecticians having an argument to produce an objective truth to two rhetoricians having an argument to produce a somewhat subjective understanding of the truth. And so both rhetoricians want to uncover the truth, but they are both seeing the world from their perspective. And I think that oftentimes in reality, two arguments or the argument over any issue comes down to two competing perspectives. And both perspectives have a little bit of truth to them, and both perspectives have a little bit of what we might call something false or not true. So rhetoric is all available means of persuasion, the counterpart of dialectic, so said Aristotle way back when. This is the definition that we will be using, and we will all be rhetoricians here as we strive towards delivering our persuasive speech. Just as all words are cultural, all words are rhetorical as well. They have an impact. And that impact is attributed to the rhetorical nature, the persuasive nature of words. Examples come to my mind. If anybody says, I don't mean to offend you, but, and then they say something, we almost always know that the next line, the next phrase is going to be offensive. And it doesn't matter that someone said, I don't mean to offend you. But what they said, did it offend you? Think about that. Yes, it most likely offended you. And that is the rhetorical impact of that statement. And you can see its rhetorical nature by your being offended. And so even if we are aware of it or not, or even if we do not want to have someone be rhetorically impacted by our words, they still impact people. And we can look at rhetoric for helping us understand the way this works. And so, ethos, pathos, logos. In short, ethos is credibility, logos is logic or reasoning, and pathos is emotional appeals. And Socrates, or Aristotle, I should say, really helps set up the foundation of our participatory society. And the reason this class is being offered all over the world and all over the country as a general education course, because it is important, yes, but also because it is the foundation of a democracy and a participatory society. The ability to speak and the understanding that our words will have an impact and lead reality in certain directions. And so speakers plus the crowd equals the truth here. And I'll write that this equation down now. Staying with us, everybody. I hope we're on Moodle and are retrieving the handouts. These are very important. The persuasive speech handouts are at the bottom of our Moodle page, while the announcements are at the top. And so please make sure that you're staying on top of all of these. There will really only be a few more, notably our unit number 2 test. And so I will give our unit number 2 test format shortly and let you know how that will take place at the end of the semester. At Cats Do Yoga, of course, on Instagram Live, if you are already here. Also, H. Hawkins F on YouTube Live. H. Hawkins F, also airing and broadcasting this there, and hopefully that is working as well. Still working out and playing and having fun with the tech as we live in a culture of the remix. And so I hope you enjoy our electronic version of our persuasive speech and are having fun recording yourselves and making a point now with technological mediums that we have at our disposal. And so all available means of rhetoric, that definition by Aristotle over 2,000 years ago, still holds true to this day. If you think about what persuasion is, and all you have to do is look at advertising, modern day advertising, what kind of methods, and ask yourself this here now, and maybe email me a response to this question. How do modern day forms of advertising use and harness all available modes of persuasion? Name 3 modes or types of persuasive techniques: humor, logic, statistics, celebrity portrayals, product placement, large billboards, blimps. The list goes on of the various ways modern advertising engages in persuasion. And so marketing and advertising here, we can see all available means of persuasion. That definition still holds true to this day. And why is advertising so prevalent in our lives? Why do companies spend millions and billions on advertising? I read a statistic recently, don't quote the exact statistic, but makeup is spends roughly 70 to 80% of their overall budget for the major companies on advertising as opposed to the product. And so why do they do this? Why is it so pervasive? The short answer is because it works. And so it does work, it is persuasive, it gets people to buy products, oftentimes products that we don't need. And so persuasion, all available means of persuasion. How does advertising still exhibit this definition stated by Aristotle way back when? Think about some of the odd places we've seen advertisements, or some of the odd ways logic is used to persuade us to use or purchase a product. So speaker plus crowd equals truth, and this is a very interesting advent here of the dialectician and rhetorician format. The speaker ingrained with a certain sense of credibility. And if you have credibility, you have knowledge of the subject. You have a certain ethical or moral code that is readable by your audience. Most importantly, and we'll harness this one, we have done the research. And so have you researched both sides of the argument based on your knowledge? And do you know what you are talking about? Also, have you prepared? And so if you're doing many of these, the speaker has some form of credibility, and the speaker will be listened to and believed more so than somebody else who has not done their research, does not have a status, does not have an ethical or readable moral code of any sort, and is not prepared. And so the speaker, harnessing ethos, pathos, and logos, speaks to a crowd. And so we might think of the jury in a court of law as the crowd. And we might think of the defense attorney and the prosecuting attorney as two rhetoricians. Now, in Socrates and Plato's model, they would be two dialecticians trying to uncover the truth, which is nice, but the way our society largely works is based on the deliberations between two rhetoricians. And so the crowd gets to say, just like the jury gets to make the final decision on what is the truth or not. Now, do we always come up with the right answer? No, not. Oftentimes we get it wrong, unfortunately. And so whose fault is it when the jury gets it wrong? Whose fault is it when society believes something that is false? It's the speaker. And so we don't blame the jury. We blame the prosecuting or the defending attorney. We don't even say that that was the truth or not. He or she is guilty or innocent of their accused crime, right? We go back and say that the attorneys, the speakers, did not lead us to the truth. And so we don't blame the jury, we don't blame the crowd, we blame the speaker. And so the speaker has the responsibility to lead the crowd to the truth. But the crowd has the ultimate say on what is the truth or not. And so you can see that the speaker has the responsibility, the crowd, or the audience has the power. And truth, for the ancient sophists and for the rhetoricians, was somewhat more malleable. It was shiftable for different given situations. And you can see how that is largely true of the world that we live in today. Ethos, pathos, and logos, Aristotle noted, should be used concurrently with equal amount of weight. And so if there's too much ethos, if you rely too heavily on your credibility, I am this, and so you should do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Listen to me because of my power and my status. You're overly relying on ethos, and you're leaving out pathos and logos. logic or reasoning. We would like to see this in your persuasive speech. Is this reasoning relevant for the problem? And so the problem solution. All of us are asked to pick an issue and find a problem within this issue. If there's no problem, then why are you arguing for your solution? And so many people do two things. Some people oftentimes emphasize a problem. This is such a problem, this is such a problem, but don't really give us a solution. Others might emphasize the solution. This needs to be done, this needs to be done, but do not outline the problem so much. With reasoning, sound reasoning, and good logic here in incredible persuasive speech, we will emphasize both at the same time. There's a problem, now what is your solution? Let's go back to our issue. Let's find a problem with this in this issue, and then propose a solution. And so take a stance. Justification, and you'll justify your claim. Is this necessary? Given your issue and your stance. Pathos. Pathos is emotional appeals. Pathos gets us into the mood, makes us aware that something is a problem, and brings any issue to our table. Why is this important? The natural environment is being destroyed at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in an air-conditioned room watching TV, and what does that matter to me if the natural environment is being destroyed? Well, the natural environment affects everybody. If we don't have good air to breathe and fresh drinking water, right, then all of us suffer as humans. And so making us aware that this problem affects us is somewhat of a pathos, or appeal to pathos, or an emotional appeal. And so is this a meaningful argument? Is this a meaningful issue? And how is it meaningful, and will it affect our lives? And so using emotion as a persuasive appeal. Ethos, pathos, and is part of our everyday lives now. I was watching a movie, I believe it's a movie made from a comic book by Frank Miller, I believe it was Sin City. And the three characters in the film were named Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. I went to Starbucks a while ago and bought some water, and the water was called Ethos. The water itself had credibility. And so it was a little bit of persuasion. All available means of persuasion, stated way back when, still makes sense as we call a water, or the water is named by the marketers as Ethos. And so the water has credibility, and I should now purchase the water because I will have credibility if I do so. And so how will you use ethos, pathos, and logos in your argument concerning your issue and your stance? Tell us how you will use ethos, tell us how you will use logos, and also how you will use pathos. Aristotle said that our credibility goes up and down as we speak. We enter the room with a certain amount of credibility, and then it goes up and down as we're speaking, and then we leave with a certain amount of credibility. And this is called our terminal credibility. And so think about how you are building credibility during your speech and anytime we communicate, and adjust as you are going forward. Logos, you might see an argument that's too much statistics. If I said it was 9 of 10 are these, and 3 out of 4, and according to 80 poll, 80% of people, it's an over-reliance on statistics and logical appeals. And so if we're not bringing it back to home, that this is important for all of us, and a pathos, and making emotional appeals. If you've ever seen an SPCA, I believe, commercial, Sarah McLachlan, I believe it is, with the sad puppies and cats, and a very long commercial playing an acoustic guitar, and it's just a very sad commercial. This commercial's still on, so it might be somewhat successful, but in my mind, it's an example of overuse of pathos. We see the sad dog, and we see the caged animals, and we just never really get an uplifting image. And in my mind, that advertisement could use a better balance of ethos, pathos, and logos. And so just show a couple pictures of the sad animals and augment that with some happy images. What is my money going to do? Is it going to get any of these animals out of the cages? And will there be a happy moment? And so it overly relies on pathos. I like to think of the good old-fashioned tear. A tear might be authentic, it might be real. But if used in the right way, it's a very persuasive technique. Not to say that someone might use a tear, but it goes back to that rhetorical impact. Are you crying because it's authentic, or are you crying because something is persuasive? It doesn't really matter. It's an emotional appeal, and it becomes rhetorical as a form of communication. Kairos and mythos. Let's also attend to these two, as we finish the 5 cornerstones of Aristotelian rhetoric. Kairos is timing. This is just what we noted. Use these 3 concurrently. Timing. How long do you speak? When are you speaking? When do you choose to rely on your status or cite a statistic? And lastly, mythos. I really like mythos. Mythos are societal myths, and so we might think about what's in the root word there, myth. And so a societal myth or a mythos, societal beliefs. You can persuade people based on your societal and all of our shared societal beliefs. Right? Most of us feel that family is important, or that money or financial independence is important. And so I can argue or make an argument based on, deliver an argument to an audience that I am unfamiliar with, and understand that they have some of these societal beliefs, that money is important and that family is important and should be protected. And so I might say, what would you do if your family was harmed or threatened? Or how would you want to be financially independent and care for your loved ones in the future? And then I can try to convince you to purchase home security or invest in a get money program online. And so you can see how you can use societal beliefs to persuade. Tell me one societal belief. And so this is a question, I like this question here for us. A societal belief, a mythos, that is ingrained in our issue. And so if we were talking about animals or human rights or the environment or just a shift in values, what are some mythos? What are some mythos that are related, some societal beliefs that are related to our issue? And many societal beliefs are not true. Just like logic, it can be logical, and we can use sound reasoning, but we can end up in a place that is not true. And many of our social inequalities are based on societal beliefs that are just not true. If we look at the feminist movement and women being excluded from the public sphere, there's a slew of societal beliefs that society has embraced that has produced the inequality that we currently see globally between men and women. Or just the gender construction that there are two genders. These are societal beliefs, but most of us have come to understand that they are true in many ways. But they're just things that we believe societally. So what are some societal beliefs that relate to our issue? Hopefully we can read this, and hopefully we're still tuned in and continuing to work on our persuasive speech assignments. Make sure that you email me the answer to a question. Make sure that we're going on our Moodle, checking all of our grades. Really excellent job, everybody, so far. Most people so far communicating with me and corresponding with me via email, letting me know that you are staying on top of the proceedings of this class. And I hope we are all excited about finishing and finishing strong. And I think we will be rewarded for some of our struggles here as we navigate successfully through the course and produce an interesting persuasive speech in an electronic format. Epidectic rhetoric. This is another branch of Aristotelian rhetoric. Epidectic. Interesting word here, Greek word, and it basically means display. And so speaking in a way to a public community that displays a display of values. And so it was really the praise or the blaming of certain societal values. And so the Sarah McLachlan SPCA commercial that highly uses pathos or emotional appeals is also a public display of epidectic rhetoric that is against animal cruelty and calls for the compassion for animals. And so this is a public display. This happens publicly. Most of our speeches happen in a classroom, and so you're speaking to the audience of the class. In doing this one, by creating a video, you can potentially post it. I'm not asking you to, I'm asking you to send it directly to me, and I will be the only one that will see this. But if you potentially post the video, or if you posted a video of yourself, and it would be a public display, it would go out to a much larger public, and it would be a display and a praise or a blame of certain societal values. And so every time we speak, we are being rhetorical, we are also speaking culturally, and we are oftentimes praising, celebrating certain ways of life, certain ways of being, certain values and belief systems. And at the same time, we are devaluing or blaming certain values or beliefs or ways of operating. And so epidectic rhetoric is a way that some of our everyday events and functions, such as sporting events, commercials, public displays of interaction, marches, sports, jogging, anything that is done publicly is a display. And it's a display that comments on our societal values. And so epidectic rhetoric, anytime you give a speech, you are displaying for the audience certain values. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a way to persuade your audience based on some of our base level needs. And so we might be familiar with this. This has been around since the 1970s and is often used in various classroom settings. And so I'll just mention it briefly here. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom is biology. What do we need to survive? We actually don't need that much, right? We need air, water, food, and that is about it. So biology, our biological needs to survive. And so we would like to have a second home and fancy things and nice clothes and car, but we don't necessarily need those things. And so this is a little bit older. It also goes down to a base level of survival that we have largely kind of left behind now in our social modern world. But it's interesting to think about these hierarchies of needs. And so if people need their base level needs met, and we can argue for that. This is a large amount of the population of the world goes without fresh drinking water, and so they're not getting their biological needs met. They also need a safe place to reside. And so the next level of needs is safety. Safety, you might think shelter and ability to stay safe from ongoing threats. And so shelter and safety comes after biological needs. If we don't have fresh water, if we don't have food, if we don't have a place to sleep that night, or if we're worried about what is going on outside of the space that we are in, then we cannot be here contemplating some of our higher order needs that Maslow states are essential to all of our well-being and survival. And so we can start at the base level. Interestingly, at the university level, when you step into a college classroom, most of us are functioning at the top. We've had all of these needs met, and if we didn't, it would be very hard to contemplate some of the higher order needs. Love comes next. Love is a sense of belonging. Love is a sense of companionship and a social network. And so as I stated in the beginning, we're all involved in social distancing, hopefully right now, but we're also being social. I'm communicating to you. You're hopefully taking some notes, comprehending some of the information, and discussing some of this with other classmates and talking to those around you. And so really, we're engaged in physical distancing. We still have to have our social needs met. Companionship, friendship, and even love there should still be present in our lives, although we are trying to stay physically separated for individuals. And I think it's important now as a society for us to understand and recognize that difference. So when you Skype with people, when you Zoom with them, and FaceTime and talk with folks, even if they're very far away, when you feel positive after that, it's because you are being social and you are experiencing this third level of need, which is love. Esteem. I like to think of trophies with esteem. How many people received a trophy or received a trophy when they were young? Most likely many of us. And so trophies and awards are big business, and small children oftentimes get them a lot because it gives them self-esteem. And so when you constantly tell someone that they're doing a good job, they feel better about themselves. And you wear this and you feel it in your bodies, because bodies are epistemic. We learn through our bodies, and we begin to carry it around with us. And so being rewarded, getting a promotion, getting an award, being praised by your peers, moving up the ladder of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The last one, this was a little esoteric in the 1970s, but now it really makes sense in the everyday, self-actualization. And so we might have awards, we might have a loving family and a nice home and have good food on our table. We might be getting a promotion at work, and we might be praised in the community to a certain degree, but are we self-actualized? And so you can comment on any one of these Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but how do you conceptualize self-actualization? What is self-actualization for you? Since the word self is there, it's different for everybody. But when we reach the pinnacle and the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we understand our true calling, as it were. We understand how we would like to live and see the world. And we understand that it might not be in relation exactly as to how everybody else views well-being and success, but it is our own definition. And so the ability, as the existentialists might say, to provide us with our own essence, and so to self-define our own value and our own worth. And so if people are dehumanized or marginalized or oppressed, they don't have the ability to self-actualize. The feminists noted that because we live in a male-dominated society, that women, it was very difficult to self-actualize yourself outside of the definition that men have provided of, and you can see the terminology, man, or humans, mankind, right? And so that self-actualization being denied to certain folks. What is self-actualization to you? And also, how might you use Maslow's hierarchy of needs in constructing your own argument in relation to the issue that you have identified for your persuasive speech? Where does your stance fall? Is this an argument for everybody to be self-actualized and realize that they are their own definition of a human and of an identity or personality? Or is this something like the argument for fresh drinking water or clean air, which everybody needs to survive? So let's remember, we are looking at rhetoric, all available means of persuasion. So stated Aristotle way back when. We asked a couple questions. How does the definition all available means of persuasion still make sense in our contemporary society? And we might look at advertisements. What are some of the ways, some of the techniques that advertisers use to persuade the audience, and then relate that back to all available means of persuasion? Rhetoricians, how are we all rhetoricians attempting to move society and reality forward in some type of way? And so everything we say has a rhetorical impact. It makes an impact on others, whether we're aware of that impact or not. We looked at ethos, pathos, and logos, and if you forget everything from this course, please try to remember ethos, pathos, and logos. It's just within our everyday lexicon, within our everyday discourse, and it is the foundation of a participatory society. The way the speaker plus the audience equals the truth. The speaker has the responsibility, but the audience has the power. People oftentimes ask, if you like something, if something is okay, if it's a good movie, or if you like a certain artist or musical act. And it comes down to the audience. Do you think they're authentic? Do you like them? Does the audience respond? And if so, well, then that person is quality and is truthful and is authentic. And so it's really up to us as the crowd, as the audience, to say if a movie is good or not, if a speech is effective or not. And so the crowd has the power, the speaker has the responsibility, and the truth is always somewhat subjective, contextual, based on each setting. We looked at kairos, or timing, mythos as societal beliefs, and then we went down Maslow's hierarchy of needs, biology, safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. Let's enjoy engaging in a little epidectic rhetoric, a public display. And so as we are engaging in our speech-making process, we are imagining an audience. And so enjoy that little performance moment when you are recording yourself, editing yourself, and then disseminating or publishing that and sending it to me. About a week later, you will receive a grade, and I will evaluate your performance, and we'll move through this class successfully and a little bit better off for the challenges that we've had to meet in the electronic apparatus. So I take it there are no comments, questions, or concerns, but if there are, of course, please email me, stay on top of our assignments, and if you know of anybody that is still struggling, please help them out by telling them to email me, and I will help them out by accommodating our needs and offering alternative formats for all of our assignments. And so until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and work smart as well as diligently. Take it easy.